Now, I ended up going to Bloomington Kennedy, and so I won't hold it against you that you're presenting for the Jefferson Athletic Association. Just know that behind you will be blue and gold. But anyways, my daughter will probably end up going to Jefferson because we now live in the Jefferson territory. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. If you want to come on up here and give us your presentation, and we'll leave a little time at the end for questions. So.
Awesome. You guys hear me okay? Well, thank you guys all for having me. Felt very welcome since joining the Rotary now a year and a half ago. I have with me our guest, Tania, president. I personally joined Jefferson Athletic Foundation 5 years ago. They wanted a board member who knew branding and marketing, and that's what I do for my full-time job. I own a branding firm, and I'm also a Jefferson alumni. I grew up here in West Bloomington, graduated from Jefferson, and I played football, where I was personally impacted as a student athlete. I played in college, and so I checked a lot of their boxes. They checked a lot of my boxes, and I've been a contributing member ever since. What we do at JAF is we support Jefferson Athletics by providing extra funding. So varsity sports are funded by state money, state taxes, but there's a gap that other communities, like our neighboring suburbs, are able to fund that make that bit of difference. But we like to think we're lending a hand. So we offer grants throughout the year, and then special requests will come in as well. For example, we had a swim team wanting to update their scoreboard, and we say if we can bring up half, we'll do the other half. How do we do this? We do mostly through pull tabs. Last year we were able to do $210,000 of grants back to each of the varsity sports, and we take each request, we vote on it, we ask if this makes sense to our mission, will this help improve the program and the students involved, and we divvy those out extra along with the quarterly grants, which we also look at what's the team size, how much do they really need, because some teams are smaller, some are bigger, some have different needs and benefits, and some have been around longer. And we could probably say now we have every sport under Jefferson under our belt. Where I first started, we were missing a few sports as a 501c3, but now we officially represent all the varsity sports and take care of that extra help. These are our current locations. We go through charitable gambling, pull tabs. If you guys ever play pull tabs in the state of Minnesota, they all have to go to a nonprofit. If you play any of these three locations, all the net profits will go back into eventually one of your favorite varsity sports programs. This, again, supplement, each of the booster clubs still is allowed to do their own fundraising, and we help handle their taxes. But for example, if you go to a car wash still for that specific sport, all that money still goes right to that sport. We pool our money and then divvy it out on top of that. Here's a list of all the sports we represent. And here's some nice photos I wanted to include. Why is this important? Broadly speaking, student athletics is, personally, I could say it really changed my life. I was not the greatest student through middle school. I didn't take anything seriously. And I'd say I've had a turning point freshman year after freshman year football at the beginning of the year. I changed my friend group. I changed my perspective of what I wanted to do. I improved my GPA. I felt like I was an example of all the benefits of being a student athlete. Without personally having football and the support and the discipline, I don't know where I'd be to this day. I took a lot of responsibilities that on average you will have almost a whole point higher GPA compared to non-athletes. You'll also have a higher percentage of college enrollment. 60% of athletes that are play in high school go on to the next level education-wise. And a hot topic that happens more, that was always been there but more focused, is mental health too. 20% less likely to have experienced depression when you're a student athlete. And we always just want to, especially nowadays, is give the opportunity. As budgets become tighter, more and more rules happen for different variations. We just want to make sure that if a student wants to be able to join, that they can. Another important reason is, frankly, Bloomington's behind in our facilities. You look at our neighboring suburbs, and you go into their gymnasiums, you go to their football fields, you go to their soccer fields. Bloomington compared to those, we don't have the same level. And our goal is to fix that in our own way. I'm very happy that we all are now as a city finally getting a on-site football field for each school. And what we love to contribute when asked, of course, is let's say we wanted to improve some of the facilities in there. Could be seat quality, could be the scoreboard, could be the concession stands, could be that little extra difference that goes a long ways, or it could be the practice jerseys, the coaches. So the main funding would still be coming through its normal budget, but we would bid that extra. And those are that little extras that you see in other stadiums that we feel Bloomington could step up at in Jefferson. Our goal, we are looking to expand more than sports. 5 years ago, we were still technically to this day, it's just varsity athletics, sanctioned varsity athletics for Jefferson. We would love to expand now for the same kind of data reasons. If you're on the debate team, chess club, any squad, et cetera, an extracurricular that builds the same teamwork, responsibilities, ethics, and we want to go beyond that funding. When I first started too, we had just two pull tab locations, one at the old Joe Sensors, RIP, and then North Star, which just opened, which we felt like we helped grow with them. And now we're at 3 locations. We're very happy about that, and potentially, and maybe add a 4th one, TBD. But we'd love to then use that benefit and affect more and more students. That maybe athletics isn't your thing. I personally was also the debate team, different cut of the cloth, but same values, same ethics, same benefits. And if we can make that experience better, smoother, and give opportunities to people that didn't think they would normally have it, that is one of our goals. When that happens, well, we'll find out. But that is something we also want to go. Citywide. So go Eagles. Potentially, if we get to a point of growth combined, there is a Kennedy Athletic Foundation we work with. But whenever you can combine forces, we do as a city already. That is a potential possibility as well that I think would benefit both powerfully. We'll see. But it is one of our goals. And how can you guys help? Well, the fun one, play pull tabs. Give yourself a good reason. So go to the bar after this. I'll do that. No, but it does actually help. Spread the word. I'm here mostly for reach and frequency. We are benefited by charitable gambling, where we don't need to knock on doors from corporation to corporation asking for funding. We had to in the beginning when we first started 10 years ago, but we're at a point now where honestly, we just want people to know of us. We find a lot of sports, both on the booster club sides, parent sides, that never heard of us. And the more they know of us, the more we know what they need, for one. And then two, to our last point, we always need volunteer to be on the board. It's a typical cycle similar to the booster clubs, where every 4 years you kind of get a new crop of volunteers. And so we want to be looking ahead. Middle school, whether you're at Olson or Oak Grove or Valley, that you can know of us. So when your kid's about to go into varsity sports, you want to give back, that we have a roster of people. Because legally, as a 501c3 funded by charitable gambling, we have to have so many people on our board, and we want them to participate. And for legal reasons, we need them as well. So thank you all for having me up here, and I'd love to answer some questions if you have any.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about how you work with the various booster clubs? I'm assuming the booster clubs are still very active, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you work?
Yeah, we actually do require participation from every sport, and we ask, it could be a head coach or the president of a booster club, but they once a month they come to our meetings, and that's the time that we participate. We update them on the budget of what we're granting, the status of certain requests, et cetera, and then we also do have access to their fundings and such, so when they make a request, we can answer any questions. We also currently do a meat raffle where every sport is encouraged to participate at North Star, and that's through the booster clubs as well. Any other questions?
I think it would be helpful to have Eric Melby just talk about what's happening with school funding, which is dragging on this, and I think it's going to be a tough issue in the legislature again. And of course, that's one of the reasons that our club has gotten involved with the middle school sports. But there's also a lot of support through the Education Foundation for scholarships for some of these programs and things. So, but it's a problem, Eric. Maybe you can just inform people a little bit more about it.
You want me to give a whole separate presentation, or right now?
Right now.
There you go. Take the mic, Eric.
This is the Eric show today.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, to Bob's point, where to start, right? So schools, you often will see school districts come into to the state capitol, going out for referendums, and at some point, folks in the public who don't work in schools or frankly don't need to pay that close attention go, well, how much is enough? When are you going to stop coming? But what folks need to understand is that we in public education have been underfunded in terms of inflationary factors for a long, long time, to the point, now, I didn't know I was going to get called up here, I would have brought a slide, but had in the last 20 or so years funding kept up with inflation, we would be getting, don't quote me on this, but roughly $1,800 more dollars per student or something like that. So when you start doing the math on 10,000 kids, that adds up pretty quickly. And so between that and unfunded mandates, as I like to call them, so we need to and should provide good special education services for our students with disabilities, but we do not get the funding necessary to pay for those services, and so we have to pull funding out of what we call our general fund to cover the cross subsidy, it's called, the cost to educate those students. Same thing happens with our English learning students, so we have a fair number in Bloomington. You might figure out that Bloomington has a lot of hotels, right? And so for temporary housing situations, we get a lot of newcomer students, which is great. We welcome them, we want to serve them, but they require extra funding. So for all those reasons, and I could go on, like I said, it could be a whole nother separate presentation, we have to be very careful with what we've got. And I'd also like to point out, because I'm on TV at some point here too, that there's certain pots of money that you can spend on things in school districts by law. And so like capital improvements to stadiums and facilities is one thing. General fund is another thing, which is really our biggest pot of money, if you will, that we pay our teachers and our staff from. And you can't mix those two things. And so, but I think Eric is accurate. In Bloomington for a long time, we've done, you have a house, sometimes you defer maintenance on a house, right? Because you have other things you need to take care of. And this is my 4th year as superintendent, and it feels like, in my case, the two stadiums that you referenced, the maintenance couldn't be deferred on Old Lincoln Stadium anymore, and so some decisions had to be made. And so what folks who have been paying attention know, but probably most people don't, is the district owns the land that Lincoln Stadium is on, the Bloomington Stadium, but we don't own the parking, we don't own the building, so every 10 years or so we have to negotiate new parking arrangements or leases with the building owner, and the stadium had reached a point where you couldn't ignore the problem anymore. We had to either put money into fixing up and making the stadium safe and modern, and it felt like a not great idea to do that if you had to still worry about parking 10 years down the road, right? So hence the effort to get the stadiums built on the sites. We worked with the city, we got there last summer, so next fall we will open nice new stadiums at Kennedy and Jefferson. To the foundation's point, we're gonna make them nice, and they're gonna be a million times better than current Bloomington Stadium. I don't know, they're gonna be really nice. But there's always things you could do to enhance the experience at those stadiums, and that's where we work with our boosters and our foundations and things like that, and other Bloomington City entities. And then to Bob's point, middle school sports, as you remember, I came to this group a couple of years ago, and after working with Chief Hodges, trying to figure out what we could do to get kids re-engaged in the community positively, right? Middle school sports had gone away, and we didn't have the funding to bring that back on our own in the district, but Rotary kicked in and got us up and running, and you saw John Bourne come here last year and give a presentation. The participation is phenomenal, the enthusiasm is phenomenal, and guess what? We're keeping kids actively, positively involved after school, learning sports, personship, and other things. So there is a reason why foundations are very important to school districts, public school districts, and so I continue to be very grateful for the Education Foundation, for the JAG Foundation, for the Kennedy Side of Town Foundations, and I'm happy to hear that we're thinking about ways we can work together, right? Because one Bloomington, right? We can do it. So I don't know if I can take any questions, or I don't want to hog all your time, Eric, but.
Any other questions?
Eric, what is going to happen with the old property that Lincoln Stadium's on?
No more questions. It's a good question, Paul. We do not know yet. So we're we need some bridge time with field time and everything as the stadiums at both sites get worked on in the spring and over the summer to open up. But we'll make a determination because it is a very somewhat unique in Bloomington location and piece of land. So I don't know yet. Debbie?
Can you talk about some of the sports that have both Kennedy and Jefferson kids now competing on the same team, representing Bloomington as a whole? Because I think that's changed over time also to really engage students in some of what I'd say are the smaller sports that you don't hear as much about.
Yes, I'll have to go from memory a bit on. So we have wrestling, I believe, is still Bloomington.
That's how it's done, Kennedy.
Yes, that's on Kennedy. Nordic
Speak to the
skiing,
Nordic and Alpine are both at Jefferson Synchronized Swimming, I believe, only, okay. I know, Nordic skiing and alpine skiing are both housed at Jefferson, and they go by Bloomington Nordic and Bloomington Alpine. I believe there's only one synchro team, and what else? The wrestling is out of Kennedy, and there was one other that came to mind that I'm losing now. I think
Both have golf.
I think both schools have golf. Yeah. So
Badminton, maybe. Over at Kennedy.
Oh, okay, and that's not an MSHSL. Will Kennedy have a boys volleyball team?
They are starting with Jefferson, but we believe they'll have their own team, yes.
Yeah, so boys volleyball just became an MSHSL, Minnesota State High School League sport. This spring will be their first official season. So that's a new one. And as Jefferson Athletic Foundation, we provide support to booster clubs that are at Jefferson currently. So we work with both of the ski teams and the synchro team. And if there's another team that I'm forgetting that's housed at Jefferson, we will provide them with grants, and they have opportunities to do volunteer shifts with bingo and meat raffles that will bring in more fundraising dollars for them as well. So.
Your question, I saw you raised $210,000 for pull tabs. Your students go to these places to man them, or how? We need to raise money too. What's involved in pull tabs?
So we have a gambling manager that is a paid. So Eric and I are volunteers on the Jefferson Athletic Foundation board. You have to have a paid gambling manager. Their taxes every month. They pay taxes on those pull tabs. People are paid to work in the pull tab booths. So no students selling pull tabs. However, we do Carmine's and Full Tilt both have bingo every week, and we have volunteers from our sports teams go to those bingos and help hand out cards. If they're collecting money, it has to be an adult. The meat raffle that North Star Tavern does, that has there are a lot of gambling laws. And for whatever reason, kids can sell meat raffle tickets, but they can't touch money with bingo, but they can with meat raffles. So if you're ever at North Star Tavern on a Monday night and a kid is walking around saying, you want to buy a $2 ticket for the meat raffle, those are our athletes, and it's legal. So, but it's a big business. It's very involved. There are a lot of regulations surrounding it. So those are paid positions. We have like three and a half paid staff that work with gambling with the foundation. So it's a lot.
A lot of administrative work.
Yes.
As long as I'm standing near a microphone, sorry, Dave, I'll get you a second. I do want to point out too that with the city's help and the voters in Bloomington, right, the Bloomington Ice Garden is being updated as well, and so we've just reached agreements with the city on how that's going to look for our high school programs, and that's going to be exciting. So in the next year and change, right, we're going to have beautiful new stadiums at each site. We're going to have a better hockey facility for our team. So there's some, folks who wondered why can't we have nice stuff in Bloomington. We're getting nice stuff in Bloomington, so that's really good.
And a great example on that one is I don't know where we rely on it, but we got requested by the boys hockey team or the hockey team in general that gets approved, but they wanted nicer locker rooms, like a step up. Like, if you put up half the money for whatever that update is, and I don't know the details, it could be wood finishings and wider seats or thicker cushions, but that's when we would step in and be like, all right, we got the general funding, but we can make it a step better so the experience is better or the training feels more polished. And that's an example of a possible thing we would help out with. I'll see here.
I'm sorry. I'm the son of a teacher. I have a local boy who's teaching middle school math in Richfield, and have 2 grandchildren at Kennedy. And from all of that, I have experience with hearing about resources the teachers and schools need. So, oh yes, we also contributed a couple hundred golf balls to the 7th green the golf program. But I sure encourage everybody, Minnesota, Bloomington Educational Foundation.
Are the students doing fundraising themselves out of these?
Yes.
Like car washes?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep. Whatever each sport wants to do, they are more than happy to. And like I was mentioning, for example, I think soccer does the car wash, if I remember.
Actually, soccer stopped doing the car wash, so having the foundation around has really freed up the booster clubs to not have to sprint around and do quite as many of the fundraisers. So, but they'll still do like Chipotle nights and things like that, where the percentage of the food. But soccer this year decided we're not going to do the car wash anymore because we don't need to, because we've been so fortunate to get this funding from the foundation, so we can kind of scrap some of those other fundraising.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when I went to Jefferson, there was no foundation, and so 3 times a year we'd get asked to sell flowers, sell gold cards, Christmas trees, and that was never fun. And we would skip practices to do those things. So instead of working on actually improving your skill, we would have to go door to door and do that. And they're still welcome to do it. And I know some, they still some organizations do, and some have now the privilege to not have to. But the benefit when that happened, for example, if you do the golf tournament, I think they still do at Dallmann, whatever is putting that on, they get all that money themselves. We will help with the taxes of it, but that's not divvied up equally, or it's not our decision how you spend it. That's so those are encouraged to participate. If you feel inclined to do a basketball fundraiser, know that it's still going all to basketball.
you say, and the foundation is made up of adults, right?
Yes.
If I was on such a foundation and the kids were relying just on our foundation and not doing some of the work themselves, I'd have a second thought. Many second thoughts.
I would say that most clubs are still doing some fundraising. It's not this constant scrambling for those funds.
That's why our cars are getting dirty.
Yeah, this is true. We need that car wash back.
Yeah. Tell them that the people want the car wash.
Yeah. Any other questions?
So since you've gotten started, have you noticed any of the requests that you've gotten to be changing? I know the demographics of the city have shifted and changed, so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can spread some light. I don't want to overshare and things too, but I've noticed they get bigger and bigger. One of it is honestly out of knowledge. And when I first joined, we didn't have all the sports. We didn't have football. I think we didn't have hockey. Maybe we did. Lacrosse. So now we have all the sports. That also changes the dynamic. But the requests are getting larger, and they're also, I'd say, more frequent. But we are also, because we're growing from 1.5 locations, I could say, to now 3 full-time locations. And I say half because North Star was brand new when we joined, and now they're humming. Do you want to expand on that?
Well, and I think the growing diversification of Bloomington and stuff, I think having the foundation there to help support these teams and help with additional coaching and things like that, it really opens things up for the booster clubs to focus on. Do we have uniforms and practice jerseys and things so that maybe some kids who otherwise would feel like they couldn't afford to join these sports are able to, and they're more likely to be able to offer scholarships for the booster clubs. Kids don't have to pay for sports fees if their household income is at a certain point. And I think that having the support of the foundation is just opening up better opportunities for kids in school to feel like they can step up and join these sports and have some of that support through their booster clubs.
Yeah. I'd say another one strategically that's changed a lot is the idea of how we can now do something like a legacy fund, where before it was more year by year. Okay, let's spend it all because taxes, et cetera. Where we're considering now, if something like a new stadium shouldn't happen, honestly, more than a couple times in a lifetime. A lot of requests could come in that we would be ready for. So whatever those potential big requests, we could have an opportunity to be like, yes, we have the money, let's do it, according if it aligns with our goals and mission. So that's a big change too in the last 5 years.
How hard is it to get expansion into these other bars that sell?
It is a very interesting dynamic of, you can imagine like any business, gambling and not gambling, it's territorial and it's relationship based. And so we are very methodical too on who we choose to work with. Our third location, Full Tilt, which happened about almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we did not take lightly, and we had other opportunities with other bars and restaurants that we didn't feel aligned with the relationship we wanted to have, because we pride ourselves. And without going into too much detail, it's a lot of stars have to align and the decisions have to be made, but it's its own community and world that we feel that we're decently plugged into, and we don't move too swiftly into any decision. So yeah, and as a volunteer, I kind of stay out of that world, honestly.
And there are limits on how many restaurants you can be at, and so that with the fourth location, that opportunity is just newly opened up in the past year or two.
Yep.
To the point where we can actually have 4 locations if that's what we feel is the best route for it.
Yeah.
Is this also how Kennedy does it?
Don't believe so, no.
Kennedy, I don't think has got as robust a foundation as what we have. I know they work with Sports Page.
Yeah,
Sports Page, and I think they just kind of do bingo there. So our foundation is a little bit larger than what Kennedy has.
Yeah, it took a long time and a lot of work because it's a lot of administrative work to make charitable gambling function smoothly. And we had our bumps along the way, but it's been smooth running for a little while. Knock on wood. But those are all the things I guess I didn't really bring up. But we also have somebody that goes to City Hall and checking if there's any potential new laws that could prevent or grow charitable gambling. For example, having only 3 locations to 4 locations. Certain cities also limit what type of charity can be funded through charitable gambling. For now, I don't know if that's still a thing, but Bloomington had it where Chaska's a nonprofit could come into a Bloomington location and get funded, but if I were to do it in Chaska, they would not let us do that because only a Chaska-based 501c3 can get funded. So paying attention to potential laws and rules that could benefit our foundation or the citywide is another way you guys could participate when voting, but we are also trying to be aware of.
I should mention,
4 presenters today. Yeah, you can keep
yeah, I was trying to stay out of it.
Should mention, and just to kind of add on to that comment that you made about the charitable thing, the way the law works is you have a certain region or area, and the city council has a responsibility in terms of what you kind of do. And so we expanded it from 3 until 4, but we did change the percentage of how much can be contributed in that particular region. So you really can't kind of say, hey, you can't be a part of this if you're not a part of Bloomington. You have to kind of do, so you got Richfield, Edina, it's kind of a region you're kind of tucked into to kind of further clarify on that. But we did do some changes in terms of how much of those charitable dollars have to kind of come back to the city of Bloomington. And so I don't remember what that percentage is. And so since I know we're on television here, I'm going to be careful about commenting on that. But I did want to kind of clarify that a little bit more so it's a little easier for the general public and also for the club to have an understanding in terms of how that operates and works. And since I'm up here, I wanted to thank Eldon, who helped one of my friends that I went to high school with, Rachel Keller, who helped us start the Kennedy ARM activity kind of foundation that was going. So, and I would be curious about, you had mentioned kind of working a little bit more with Kennedy. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, if you could.
Yeah, that's we make goals. Our first priority is, and it sounds like you guys' activities is to, it might be something we do sooner than later. It depends on if our numbers keep going up, is to first go activities wide. And then, a goal is ours is to then, can we combine forces to then be activities and athletics citywide, and just pool our resources. And I'd say the priority, without speaking out of line, is probably activities first. We would love to get band and choir and any extracurricular that benefits that could use the funding, Minnesota DECA, et cetera. Just get student participation up in extracurriculars, because it's the same benefits. I think it falls along with our mission, except for the fact it's on varsity really well. And then I think, you said it best, one Bloomington, right? So for all.
Yeah, this would be kind of a technical follow-up, but putting together the bylaws, which and other organizational documents that Dwayne volunteered me to do for the Kennedy Activities Foundation, we specifically put in the bylaws that it had a mission, basically any activity that is school or school associated and sponsored. So specifically, we're not limited to Minnesota State High School League sponsored activities, which you have many, and boys volleyball would be a new one. Debate, sponsored by the State High School League. But would you have to amend your bylaws to include the choir?
I wouldn't take it lightly. These are goals I could say would happen, within 5 years or less potentially. I think the landscape, let's be honest, of extracurriculars is changing. Participation shifts from new and trending sports and activities, and whatever it is, as long as they have, in my opinion, a value of teamwork, participation, growing yourself as a character. I want to give any student that opportunity, and that could be, I'm just making one up, but say pickleball just finds that generation, and it's not sanctioned, but if it keeps them busy after school and a team environment, I'd love our funding to go there. And then another landscape that's changed since I was in high school, Bloomington has plateaued a bit its population, and we're going to probably have to consolidate or be more creative in our resources school-wide. And we've seen that with Kennedy losing hockey and wrestling years ago having to combine. And that's probably going to happen still, or this sport isn't as popular as it once was 20 years ago, but they still want to have that option. But because they're housed at Kennedy, now we can't fund them. I want to get rid of as much red tape like that as possible to give students an opportunity to participate.
Yeah, and I suppose as the population demographics change a bit, you also have different sports that emerge. I noticed on the east side of St. Paul, there's a real active badminton competition.
Exactly.
A sport that's more common to the communities there, but Bloomington obviously is, I'm sure Harry could, and Deb could say, has lots of diversity, and so new things might emerge just associated with different demographics.
Very much, and that'll continue, and change is a good thing, and we just want to be there for how and wherever that is, as long as it follows our core values, which our bylaws currently don't reflect it, and it might take a lot longer, but not. But anything you want to add to that? You're the as the president.
I don't think so. Yeah, we want to be able to provide for the students of Jefferson, but it's definitely a process, and because we work so tightly with the booster clubs, that's one of the things we really need to see, is that the clubs that we bring in have a robust booster club in place, and that these volunteer opportunities, I shouldn't even call it fundraising opportunities, the bingo and the meat raffle, because teams get fundraising money from those, so that there's a booster club in place that ensures that money is being spent in an appropriate manner. So.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I guess one last question.
All
right. You said you're kind of well set with the money coming in, but you had mentioned about board members. Since we're in the process of the city of looking at maybe a new city manager, can you talk about the qualities you look for in a new board member?
Yes, and you could expand on this, Tania. And I don't want to be overextending, but participation is as much as you want it to be. But minimum is in person once a month, and I believe you can only miss 2 meetings a year, roughly, according to our bylaws and the state laws. It varies. Some of them focus on alumni participation building. That's a role. I'm in branding and marketing, so when we need updates on the website or posting on social, that's my department. We will, because it's more of a numbers game of terms of having the amount of people, we will work within the skill sets that you can provide. Granted that you can participate physically, coming to our meetings and being part of our communication. And it's as much as little beyond that as you want it to be. Tania puts in a lot of hours comparatively to
Yeah,
others.
and I think when we recently redid our bylaws, speaking of bylaws, and we purposely were fairly vague about the different positions other than the ones that we need to legally have, because people do bring in different skill sets. And mostly though, as long as they've got that passion for the teams, that's really what we're looking for. We are mostly, aside, I think Eric is our only non-parent currently on the board, so I would love to see some of our more recent college graduates get involved who are alum of Jefferson, who want to come back and get some professional experience on their resumes and get back to the school. So.
It's pretty open-ended though.
Yeah.
Participation could be pretty minimal or as much as you'd like it to be. But yeah, we have. I think our problem, not problem, it's common is we have a cycle, and it's because my student is going to be or is a varsity athlete, and then when they graduate, I graduate, and then we have to then onboard and bring them in, and that's not uncommon. So it's a breathe in, breathe out scenario for us. Yeah, I think. Thank you guys.